access to that somewhere, or did we see that?
It is
Did
in
we
the
get it in
packet.
in
Yes,
our
it's
packet?
part of the application, but
Okay.
it's lengthy.
It's lengthy here.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm just curious because that's something that's down the road that
Yes.
you got to plan for, so.
Correct. And I would anticipate that state laws will continue to be amended, but right now there is state laws in place too that provide for the disposal of or recycling of the panels themselves. So provisions in place, and this is just our attempt to condition or require them to follow the plan that they have submitted.
Any other?
Well,
Commissioner Anderson.
I'll make a motion that we approve this solar panel for Lake Lillian, Barbara Stahl landowner. I don't know how you would word it, so.
Sure. A motion to approve the facts and findings, the conditions of Lake Lillian Solar LLC. Okay. Motion by Commissioner Anderson, a second by Commissioner Amc. Any further comments or discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passed unanimously. And you have one more, I believe.
One more, yes, and that is an application of Verizon Wireless in Section 32 of Roseville Township, right up on State Highway 23, just southwest of Howick, I guess it would be, but right on, many of you know the what was longstanding Hudson property. So Lyle and Foster are the brothers involved as the current landowners there. They are proposing to construct a 250 self-supporting wireless communications tower. This application is the same application that both the Planning Commission and County Board approved last July 2021. In communication with the office, the Verizon is not able to commit to getting it built this year at all. So they're looking at a spring construction. So right now they're just a month under the 1 year time frame to renew a conditional use permit. Or if you haven't utilized it, you need to reapply. So, but they know that they weren't going to be able to construct until next year. So they went ahead and just proactively reapplied. And the Planning Commission heard that request, and recognizing that it was the same request with no change, unanimously recommended that the County Board approve the application with the one condition and the findings that were before you.
Mr. Chair, I'd move on the wireless Verizon conditional use permit with findings and conditions.
Motion by Commissioner Amc and a second by
I'll second.
Commissioner Gardner. Any further discussion or comments? I just, we're going to call for the vote, but before I do that, I just want to clarify a couple things for the audience that may be watching this or live streaming this too, that we went through this pretty fast, it sounds like, but we all received copies of the minutes from the Planning Commission, as well as we get the packets in their boards that we, board material that we all read ahead of time as well. And we're fairly familiar with the issue. So, at this point, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Pass unanimously. Please continue to your next
Agenda item.
Wetland Conservation Act.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so this is just a resolution that addresses the decision-making authority for the Wetland Conservation Act. Previously, the resolution, as the local unit of government administer the Wetland Conservation Act, we have to have a resolution that says how we're going to do that. We have one in place that right now currently splits the decision-making authority between myself and the board, depending upon the type of application. So if something was a replacement plan that somebody was proposing to fill some and then buy replacement credits, and or the creation of a wetland bank. So if somebody was going to maybe reflood an area that had previously been drained and then be able to establish a wetland bank such that people can buy wetland credits from, those two applications ultimately came before the County Board of Commissioners for approval in the current resolution. This resolution delegates the authority entirely to the Environmental Services Office. So I think the basis maybe for the split in the past was previously, or prior to me starting in this role in 2019, all of the decision-making was split between the SWCD and the Kennewick County Environmental Services Director. So I think this is kind of maybe just a an effort to kind of be clear with the decision-making process, now that we are the only local unit of government administering it. Therefore, I think there's ability for us to simply give that decision-making authority to the Environmental Services Office. And the other part of that, to be transparent, that it's not just me. All of these decisions that I would be working on together with are the technical evaluation panel. So it's a board of soil and water resources professional, Minnesota DNR professional, and a member of the Soil and Water Conservation District. So it still is a group decision to make regarding any application that would come forward. So that's the change to the recommended resolution. So if there are questions from there.
Commissioner Amdek.
Yeah, I think you answered it. I just want to make sure that I understand it, that every time an application comes in, whether it's for restoring wetlands or for purchasing wetlands, it'll be the tech panel
Correct.
that will make the decision, but your office will just be the authorizing body to.
Correct.
Okay. And the tech panel, again, is somebody from Bowser, Board of
Soil and Water
Resources.
And the Minnesota DNR, if it's within shorelands, so within 1,000 feet of a lake, that person would be involved. And then one member from the Soil and Water Conservation District.
Okay.
So if it's in shorelands, there's 4 members. If it's outside of that, it's 3.
From SWCD, if I may continue.
Yep,
Please proceed.
SWCD, is it a staff person or is it a board member?
staff person, Ryan Peterson.
Any further questions or comments?
I just have a comment, and I don't know if this particular resolution that's printed out here has been printed to be signed, but authority is spelled incorrectly, AUTHROITY. You maybe want to fix that before.
We'll fix that first. Thank you.
I don't know why I notice stuff like that, but.
Any other questions from any of the commissioners? So the major change, you said that we...
Normally, would it
Mr.
come
Gear.
to the board normally, or is it we just ceding some of our authority to our staff? That's what
Correct.
basically we're doing?
Correct.
Mr. Chair.
Just follow up on this 1 second, please, Commissioner Gardner. Is this common practice among other counties as well?
Yes, that's kind of what spurred me to bring this forward. I was just to a Wetland Conservation Act training, continuing education thing, and in visiting with other local administrators as well as Bowser staff putting on the training, most counties are operating out of one office in a sense, and then handling all decision-making to staff.
Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Gary, so for example, the item that came to us last fall, I believe it
yep.
was, that type of thing isn't going to be seen at the board anymore?
Correct. That would be the technical evaluation panel would make the determination, and there's an appeal process, of course, to everything, and that could come back to this board.
If I recall, that was something where someone was actually non-compliant, so I don't know if it ever went to the tech panel of the board to begin with, where the landowner just started doing what they wanted to do.
They did start out of order, yes, but then the technical evaluation panel got involved, got a stop work order on the project, and then resolved it through that application process.
Now, I'm just not certain that the neighbor considers it resolved. That's the only question.
And I agree.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments from anybody? Commissioner Dudek.
My only, in my mind, I'm thinking about, what is the recourse, but I think the appeals process gives you the recourse.
Correct.
Still.
And the appeal process the application for appeal would go to Bowser directly, but then they would submit it back to me to come here. So I think that's a good way maybe to still have the board involved, or to be able to rule on something, but the anticipation would be that we wouldn't get to appeal type of situations either, because the goal is to work it out.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yeah, normally this sort of thing, when people are dealing with wetland conservation, they have to deal with Bowser and soil water anyway, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Any further questions or comments? I guess my only other comment was if something does come up, it can be part of updates that we have for the county administrator. You just call it to our attention or just come and let us know. Or, because occasionally there could be something like you're talking about that we would like to be informed about, and we can count on you doing that. Well, hearing no further comments or questions, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Oh, wait,
Do we have a
We have a
motion?
motion on it.
Oh, that's a good
oh,
plan.
thank you.
We didn't have a motion.
I'll just make
Thank
that
you,
motion.
Mary.
That, we move on 2022-34.
I'll
A
second
motion by
that.
Commissioner Anderson, second by Commissioner Nissen. Commissioner Nissen, any further questions or comments? Hearing none, now I will call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Passed unanimously.
All right.
But thank you,
Mr.
thank you very much for bringing all this forward to us and to our attention.
Would you care to sign the 2 conditional use permits now, or up to you?
We do have time.
Then I'll come forward.
Normally, we got a lot going on. So we'll just take a quick,
But is it
Pause here.
spelled?
let you get back to working. We don't have to worry about this anymore.
That's not the same thing. That's not
Yeah,
the same
you're
thing.
gonna-
It's a curse.
It is, I mean.
Sometimes spell check doesn't always work right. Well, thank you, Mr. Gier, and Commissioner Nissen. Whoever replaces you is going to have to be really sharp on their spelling. We don't want to lose that. Put some
I
pressure
don't
on
know
some
if it's
people
a
here.
gift or a curse, but
Yeah. Okay, getting back to the agenda and more serious on our meeting, I would like to call on Chief Deputy Auditor Treasurer, Mr. Tom Odens. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I'm here today with Resolution 2022-35, which would be authorizing the sale of a tax forfeit parcel of land in Spicer to the city of Spicer. A little bit of backstory on this one. This is not a new tax forfeited parcel. It's actually been forfeited to the state of Minnesota since the 1930s.
okay.
The schools in the city of Spicer, or New London Spicer schools, had used it as a conditional use that since had reverted back to the state because they're no longer meeting those conditions in the year 2000. So it's kind of been sitting in the state's name since then. The city of Spicer has written a request to the county to purchase the parcel of land for $1 and what I have a map of it if you'd like to know where it's at. It's on the west side of Spicer.
Hang on, I'll put it up there, Tom.
The west side of Spicer, okay. For reference, there's a large building right to the south of it. You know, can you identify that building?
zoom
That
in.
would-
So this is Fifth Avenue. So it's on the west. This is actually, it's, I think, West Side Park or in the city of Spicer. So the city of Spicer owns this tract of land, and this is the Spicer Economic Development Authority here. So the state of Minnesota, this blue rectangle, that's the parcel of land in question that they're offering to purchase. So what they would like to do is, this offers an access on the east side of the park. Normally, right now, they only have access on the west. They would also be, in the future, potentially be adding onto their park, maybe a splash pad or things like that as well. So I guess the question would be is just to authorize a sale of land for less than market value. So they're offering $1. So then there'd be other recording fees along with that as well.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Larry.
Commissioner Nissen.
No, Larry.
Oh, proceed, Administrator Kleindall.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, this is a practice we have done in the past. We've also, in the last couple of years, we did some land in Sunburg, We had tax forfeiture land, and because it was for community use, we can do what Mr. Odens is asking. So this is a practice we do for other local units of government.
Maybe
Commissioner,
more of a curious, I'm still not oriented to where this is at. What is the building there?
Yeah, I asked that.
So that's Cottonwood Limited Partnership on the east side, straight south. This is Cottonwood Limited Partnership.
Is it apartments?
I believe so, yes.
so like,
Yeah, I can't place it either, but
Mr. Odens, whereabouts is the school, or is this down there by the ballpark? I had the same question.
So it's more on the west side, I'd say.
Further west then.
So straight west of it's on, Manitoba Street would be just to the east of it. Kind of like straight west, like where the fire hall is, behind that.
Oh.
On the west side in that part of town. And they would be continuing to use this tract of land as a park as well, so.
Okay, I will,
Commissioner Nissen.
I will move the resolution. I think that regardless of where it's at, I think it's
Yes,
a good deal, and
we could have Googled it ourselves as long
Yeah,
as we had
yeah.
this much of a map, and I think we all feel comfortable with it. A
think
motion
I've
by
read it.
Commissioner Nissen, and is there a second?
I'll second that.
A second by Commissioner Anderson. We have a motion and a second. Is there any other questions or comments? Okay, at this point then, I'll call for the vote for resolution number 2022-35. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Pass unanimously. Thank you for bringing that forward, Mr. Odens. And now I'd like to call on Canada County Administrator, Mr. Kleindahl.
oh, for God's sake.
Morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. My name is Larry Klein, County Administrator. Here before you today to ask you to accept a donation to Kennewick County from the First Lutheran Church, Norway Lutheran Church, and they would like to build a pergola, which they will use for Sunday morning services. In the last 20 years, I think during the summer months, they've had Sunday services out at Gaines Lake County Park. And if you go out to the park, we have a shelter. And right by the shelter, which is close to the lakeside, that's where they generally have had their services. In wet years, that area gets kind of soft and soggy. And so they wanted to build something that wouldn't be as wet during wet months and stuff. And they had asked us to do that several years ago when we were doing all of our park projects. This just didn't rise to the top of things that we want to get done. So one of the things that they asked is that could they do it? And I said, I told them what the process was. They would have to go through the building permit application process to make sure the setback was correct. They did that. And then I asked them if, to submit some designs, and that's what they were doing here. They've worked with the park managers as well, and trying to find a location that meets the setbacks, and trying to find locations that meets their needs as well as other people. So the estimate value that you'd be accepting this donation on is around $18,000. It will be built on county land, and it would be maintained by a partnership, by them and by us. It's on county property. On non-use days, non-Sundays days when they're not having services out there, it's open to the public. So if somebody wants to go out there and sit by the lake on a pergola and play a guitar or sit and read a book, they can do that. And here's kind of what it looks like. So it basically protects them from the elements of the sun. And so before they're ready to go. Matter of fact, I had to slow them down and just let them know that the board had to accept a donation before they could start. But I would imagine if they're watching right now, as soon as, if you give approval, they'll be digging today.
Okay,
Mr.
Commissioners,
Chair,
pressure is on us. Commissioner Nissen.
I'm familiar with this project because Dave, I can't remember his last name now, drives school bus with me, and he approached me with this a year or two ago.
Yeah, I know.
And so I'm happy to see it's moving. And this pergola will also be useful when they have their annual meeting, because now they're sitting outside on with a table, and if it's rainy or inclement, they're in trouble. So this will help that as well. I'm a little curious about all of the moving biffies and this and parking for the pasture and the stuff that's on.
Yeah, those are things that I would deal with as administrator, deciding where mini VIFs and stuff would go. That wouldn't be up to the.
Okay.
Commissioner Nissen, would you want to make a motion?
I would like to move that we approve that gift.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Commissioner Gardner.
I'll second with a follow-up.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second to approve this. Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Larry, if you can put that map back up for just a moment. So one of the requests, and my interest in this is that we camp out at Games Lake at the county park. So the actual location that is going to be approved here would actually be the one down in the middle. Is that correct? The one
Right here?
that shows up in green? Yes.
I believe so.
Because their initial location that they wanted would be actually right over the new culvert for the, that goes out into the, takes excess stormwater out into the lake.
Yeah, Public Works would not like that.
Yeah, I figured as much. So,
shaking his
so it
head.
looked like there were three locations on here, and I'd been out last weekend and looked at this as well. And I'm perfectly fine with that secondary location as as you've just indicated on here, right off the corner of one of the shelters.
Thank you for the clarification. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we got a motion and a second, and we'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Pass unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Kleindall. Now I'd like to call on Candido County Public Works Director, Mr. Odens.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, normally we're up here recommending an award of a bid. Today, we're going to recommend that you reject the bid. This is for project SAP 34-630-014, and we opened bids 2 weeks ago. And that was the spillway or raceway at the Nest Lake Dam. Now, this has been a project in the works for a few years. We had a dry year last year, and we're hoping to get it in because it's it's not a huge project, if you will, from a standpoint of actual bricks and mortar, but it's a large project because it's part of the Middle Fork of the Core River. So what you run into is you run into large expense in dewatering plans, you run into a large expense of staging area, traffic control, time of construction, and then this year we also run into the issue of no precast panels because you're about a year out. So what we did in the bid was we bid it because all the precast companies were saying you can't satisfy the terms of the money you got from the DNR if you wait for precast box. So we thought, well, what do we do? So we bid cast in place. So you literally form it up, set your rebar, pour concrete, which is fine. I mean, it's a great way to go. I mean, it's many boxes and bridges have been done that way. But what it does do is extends it kind of increases your cost. And then ironically, this is a DNR project. It all stemmed from the inspection of the area by the dam safety unit, the DNR dam safety unit. And they indicated that that something needs to be done here. So they went after money. They had bonding money, leftover bonding money last year, $260,000 that can only be, you have to match it 50%. The administrator and I worked with our state aid account, and we were able to match it with state aid dollars. Well, 260 times 2 is 520,000 as the maximum limit of this project where we were at. And if you look in your executive summary, the project came in at 1.2 million. So we're $750,000 over the estimate, over the money that's available. And so it's our recommendation to reject these bids. And so what are we going to do to get the cost down? Hopefully, we're going to let it this fall in a better climate. Hopefully, the precast option will enter back into the picture because that's a lot quicker. And when you're doing a dewatering of a river, the quicker you can get it done, the quicker, the cheaper it will be. We're going to open up the construction site a little bit, let them take maybe half the road for staging, and then maybe extend the season of it. So with that, it's my recommendation to reject these bids as the first step. So,
Mr. Chair, I move
Commissioner Emdek.
to reject the bids, and I have a comment.
Okay, a motion by Commissioner Emdek. Do I have a second
I'll
by
second.
Commissioner Nissen? Commissioner Emdek, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the $260,000 that the DNR had, kind of discretionary funding, would that have had to have been used in this calendar year in order to?
it expires on June 30th of 2023. And we've had discussion with the DNR, and you can extend that grant agreement. So we're hoping, there's a lot of things going through my mind right now. First of all, $260,000 isn't enough to do the project. Okay. So we can extend the grant agreement, for another maybe a year, for instance. But without, in this case, they get the money for this through the bonding bill. Well, there is no bonding bill, so there's no option to get more money. So we're in kind of this little limbo thing, because even if we get better bids, I don't think they're going to come in, $700,000 cheaper. So we're in this little bit of a deal. I don't know that I can recommend to this body to award a bid that extends our finances if there is no other financing. I think we need other financing. So we're gonna reject the bids as the first step, and then we're gonna need to aggressively go after other sources of funding to get the gap closed.
So, Mr. Chair, that makes number 6 of the High County projects that became victim of no bonding bill this year, because we've already had 5 other projects that we're no guarantee we were going to get them, but we're guaranteed not to get them without a bonding bill. Is where we're at. It's really frustrating.
Mr. Anderson, did you have it?
No.
Oh, okay. Any other questions or comments? One question I had then, we're going to vote on rejecting the bill. Do we also at the same time approve rebidding this fall?
No,
You're
I
going to
don't
come
wanna-
back with that?
I think, Mr. Chair, that's where I was going. There's, we need to do the first step, reject
step
the
at a
bids,
time.
and then we're going to meet tomorrow. We're going to meet tomorrow at a joint meeting with the DNR, and we're going to try and come up with a strategy for a lot of things. The bringing the cost down, time frame, permit concerns that they might have, and then funding.
All right. Any further questions, comments? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote for the motion concerning rejecting the bid. For the sealed bid, it was, the last numbers were 630-014. And for the bridge number 92146, repair and dam. Okay, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Pass unanimously. And
Thank you, Mel.
yes, thank you very much for bringing this forward to the board. This is very important, and your advice is well taken. All right. Our next item on our agenda is Candy County Facility Maintenance Director, Andy Thorson. Good morning, Andy.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
I think you got better news for us?
Yeah, yep.
Sorry,
So
no.
before you today to recommend authorization of accepting a bid for the Katy County Jail Programs remodeling. That was, we had bid opening on June 15th. And in your packet, it shows that W. Goman Construction was the low bid for this project. And we are right on budget. I'm really surprised with that low bid from Goman that we're right on budget.
Administrator Kleindall.
For the record, Andy, could you name the three bidders?
Yes, we also
amount?
received a bid from Century Construction Company for $295,000. Coup Contractors for $359,461, and the low bid from Gooman Construction for $265,500.
Commissioners, any questions or comments? Administrator Kleindall, would you like to point out?
And just, how we're funding your project, as you recall, when we asked you to submit the bids, this year project will be paid out of sundry funds. Those are funds that, commissaries, items that we sell to the inmates, and those dollars can only be used to improve or enhance the education and skill level for the inmates, and so it's good use of those dollars. And again, we're doing this because we're expanding and changing how we do the court proceedings. We learned from COVID that we can do that, and so with the COVID, took our educational and training room for the interactive courtroom, and so we needed another room, and that's what this year is for.
Mr. Chair, I would move that we award the bid to W. Goman Construction.
A motion by Commissioner Nissen and a second by
I'll second.
Commissioner Gardner. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passed unanimously. Thank you for bringing us
Thank you, Mr.
forward.
Chairman,
Thank you
members of the
for
board.
Happy
coming.
birthday, Andy.
Oh, okay. At this point, we're coming near the end of our agenda, and I'd like to call on Candy County Administrator Kleindall for any updates you may have.
I'll just give a few quick updates here. Just a reminder to everybody, we have a Board of Equalization tonight here at 6 p.m. We do have people signed up to present. Also, on June 23rd at 7:30 in the morning, Carbon Summit will be doing an informational meeting at the Wilmer Community Center from 7:30 to 9. That'll be the first informational meeting held in Candy County. And so if you can attend that, maybe something,
That's clarification, that's in the morning.
7:30 in the
Oh,
morning.
I was going to show up at night. Thank you.
No,
I thought of my
7:30
calendar.
a.m.
Yes, a.m. All right, thank you.
And then also, we've been working with Prairie Woods Environmental Learning Center to look into, to extend a trail. And currently, we have a trail it's blocked off by a wetland. And in order to access the remainder of the property, we have to walk on a person's property that owns it. And so what we'd like to do is enter into discussions about swapping some land, equal value. And we can do that under the statute. We can swap equal value land. If we can come to agreement, we would just, once we get an agreement, we'd set up a public hearing, notify the public of the information of where that's at, and then the board would have that option to approve or not approve. But I want to let you know that I'll be having that discussion. Those of you who are on the board of the Prairie Woods Environmental Learning Center know we've been talking about this since 2019, and we were close, and I'll be honest, it's just one of those things that got pushed aside, and we just never followed up on. I think we've had a plan since September of 21, and it's, again, when you only have so many days and hours in a week, you prioritize things, and sometimes things that are important, but not as important, get pushed aside. So we having those discussions coming up, and hopefully can bring that to you by early fall.
Okay,
And that's all I have for now.
okay, thank you. Any questions of Mr. Kleindahl at all? Hearing none, okay. Anything on calendars? Anybody else wants to put on their calendar at this point? Okay, at this point then, I will start at the end of the table, start with Commissioner Gardner. Any committee updates that you wish to share?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's been a busy last couple of weeks. The week before, I was in St. Paul for 2 days for meetings down at the Minnesota Department of Health, where one was an orientation to MDH itself, and then the second was actually the first in-person meeting of the SHAC, the State Community Health Services Advisory Committee, since just before the pandemic started. The conversation really revolves around coming out of the pandemic, picking back up some conversations about what does 21st century healthcare begin to look like. Prior to the early 1970s, every local jurisdiction had its own health board. And through legislation was created that we now have all these regional community health boards. We're part of the Candy-Ojai-Brenville Community Health Board. And there are 51 of these boards across the state. Well, now what does the next iteration of that Public Health 3.0 look like? And those are the discussions that are being picked back up, and I think that's going to be an interesting topic of conversation. I'm looking forward to some potential involvement around those conversations. Like most everybody else, I attended the AMC regional meeting in Wood Lake. On my way back, I stopped by the Parks to Prairie's event out at Robbins Island that Soil and Water Conservation District put on. Between Soil and Water, our own pollinator initiatives, and what the city of Wilmer is doing, I'm really actually quite happy for the future of our pollinators in Candy-Ojai County. We also had Central Minnesota Jobs and Training Services Joint Powers Board meeting. That was relatively brief. And everything else that I have to comment on that I've been working on over the last several weeks will be addressed during our ARPA discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Nissen.
Yes. Well, starting right after the last meeting, the Highway 23 legislative group met over at, what's the name? I can't think of the fellow that has Rambo. And we talked about what had happened and what didn't happen at the legislature and how it affected generally transportation. It was more of a general transportation discussion. And really nothing else transpired. We just talked about hopefully something will still happen. And the governor last night on TV was pretty negative about whether that's going to happen. So that's a little addition to what we talked about. Then the Glacial Ridge Scenic Byway met via Zoom, although some of us did go to the tourism at the Wilmer Chamber of Commerce, so it was a hybrid meeting, I guess you'd call it. We're working on a master plan for the byway to see if we can get funding for various things. Building another kiosk right here at the Historical Society, because it's the beginning of the byway from this end, things like that. After that, we had a very short meeting, Mid-Minnesota Development Commission. I was on the nominating committee, and we nominated new officers for the meeting that we're going to have this week. Tomorrow night, we'll have an election. But we did nominate some good folks to fill those positions. The Candioi County Historical Society, we met as well. Very routine, nothing urgent to talk about there. And then the Woodland Center had their annual meeting out at the Prairie Woods at the pavilion, and it really wasn't, it was more of just a get together for the staff. Then there was really no meeting. There was a report, and they always usually bring someone out who's benefited from the treatment at Woodland Centers, and that fellow gave a very good talk about how we have affected his life in a positive way. So that's kind of what I've been doing. I did miss the District 6 meeting, totally my fault. I set the alarm for 6:30, but I rolled PM instead of AM. So so I apologize for that, and I also missed we interviewed a group of applicants for our executive director position in Morris at CPT, but I had a wedding in Pelican Rapids, so I had to miss that too. So normally I never miss a meeting, but there's 2 in a row, and I apologize for that, but that's my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Nissen. I think that's a fear that we all have. Set the alarm before our big board meeting here.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to call on Commissioner Anderson.
Okay, yep, since our last board meeting, I had a few meetings. One was with JD7, it was a joint drainage meeting. We basically set it up as a joint drainage ditch, number 7, with Candy, Ojai, Renville, and Chippewa County. And what we did there is, first we did that, and then we also decided whether or not if we would do a redetermination of benefits. And what that basically is it's an reassessment of the land. I believe when they said that last time it was done was back in the 1950s, and it would be kind of as if your property was assessed the last time in the 1950s. Now you're doing it in 2022, and so there's quite a few changes have been made or improvements on the land, and property values have gone way up since then. Probably in the 50s it would have been like $100 an acre or $75 an acre or something like that. Now it's significantly higher. The biggest complaint at that meeting would have been the cost of doing a redetermination of benefits. It does cost quite a bit of money. Their complaint was, well, we'll spend a lot of money, but then we won't have any maintenance being done. And my point was, well, if we don't do this, then you're restricted on how much maintenance you can do, because your taxing authority or whatever with the drainage system is a lot lower than what it will be once it's done with the redetermination of benefits. But we did decide to go ahead with the redetermination of benefits. And then our next meeting was the Amc District 6 meeting down in Yellow Medicine County. It was at the Wood Lake Community Center. Basically, everybody just kind of gave their reports, which with the legislative report, it wasn't much because nothing got done. So if you don't like government to do anything, it was a great year. But if you want something accomplished like bonding bill and different things like road projects and stuff, then it was a disaster, I guess you could say. And so that was basically what was talked about there that I remember. The other meeting I had was a Pioneer Land Library System meeting. And it'd be just like everything else we're finding out with our raceway here. We found out the expense was way higher than estimated. And with the Pioneer Land Library System, the costs are going up, due to trying to retain employees, trying to recruit new employees. They have an internal delivery system between the 32 different libraries in our system. And with that is an attachment that we pay extra for higher gas prices. And so those costs are going up. And Lori Ortega, she'll be coming with a request here pretty soon with budgets. And it'll be, I was actually surprised what her request was lower than I thought it would be, considering all the cost increases. And then I guess on a personal note, I did attend a couple parades, and my goal was to make it through the parade. My first one was in Candio High. I made it half a block and my tractor died on me. But I did show up. And the Atwater Parade, I made it all the way through, so that was a success. So I'm 1-1 for parades this year. I guess the only other thing would be coming up, South Fork Crow River Watershed is having a kickoff event tomorrow at the McLeod County Fairgrounds in Hutchinson. It'll be from 5 o'clock to 7:30 p.m. That's the kickoff for the One Watershed, One Plan. And hopefully there will be some interest. There will be pizza if anybody wants to have free pizza. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Anderson. Commissioner Emdek.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Commissioner Anderson, if that would have been the parade in Padua for the St. Patrick's Day, that half a block would have been half of the parade. So I'm going to just, everybody talked about the AMC District 6 meeting. Thank you for attending. And I'm hearing comments about the legislature's failure to act on many, many levels. And there are some counties, Matt Hilgart reported at the District 6 meeting that at the end of session summary that they had where there was 200 and some, Larry, do you know the number of how many people were on that webinar? I think, Dwayne, you were on it as well, and Court.
70
It
something.
was like 80% of the people there polled wanted them to go back to session. It was the day before it had been ended. And Matt said since these district meetings have been going on, that has risen to 90%. And so some of the counties are passing resolutions. Greater Minnesota, Greater Mankato Growth, I think it's called, as organization, is calling for going back to session. Austin Chamber of Commerce is calling for them to go back to session. I think Pope County is going to be acting on a resolution today, and I would like us to consider a resolution to ask for them to go back to work and get the work done. It's got a lot of tails, including tax breaks that aren't happening as a result. On June 11th, a Saturday, we went to the Sibley State Park Trail dedication, which was a nice turnout for a really nice trail that going in. There's one of our casualties is that the trail going from Sibley into New London with part of the bonding bill is not going to happen now, at least this year. On 6/13, we had the Highway 23, Highway 9 safety meeting. We were presented with 4 concepts for comment, not for approval. It's not going to be a democratic process necessarily, but it was a long conversation. I couldn't stay the whole while because I also had planning and zoning halfway through the meeting I had to leave. But I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done there. The concept that seems to have the most attention, of course, is going to be the most expensive one. And I think the sentiment at the meeting was, let's not let costs stop us from doing the right thing. Let's do the right thing and see where we can, shake the couch cushions and find some more dollars to get it done correctly. On the 16th, I went to Pints and Pollinators at Goat Ridge Brewery. I got there late because the store was closing about the same time they were leaving, but I got there in time for the meeting after the meeting and had a very nice conversation with both the new SWCD manager, executive director, and then also John Jaskey, who is head of Bowser, Board of Water and Soil Resources. And he offered, and I think it's something we should maybe consider one time, he offered to come to one of our board meetings. A lot of people don't know what Bowser does and what their authority is and why they're involved with things like earlier today we talked about the TEP panel. And, some of us are been around for a while and still don't really know fully what Bowser does. So that might be worth a visit. And then Saturday, I went to the Green Lake Property Owners Association annual meeting at Bible Camp, and some of them were learning for the first time of the risk of the raceway at spillway at the I guess it's actually the Nest Lake Dam, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that goes into Green Lake, so. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Emdek. I'd just like to add that for public's information too, Commissioner Emdek is the chair of our region's District 6 board and did an excellent job. But I also feel that maybe there's disappointments, but there's very good discussion, and it's really good to get together with the other counties in our region and sharing different ideas about how they conduct some of their meetings and some of their protocols, and it's very, very helpful. Also, I'll report on some of my committees. I attended the pollinator meeting too in New London, and it was an excellent meeting. And they had a speaker, and she spoke for at least an hour and a half, I believe. A lot of details that really opened my eyes to the importance of pollinators, and it kind of reminds me of our involvement with the monarch butterfly program, and the pollinators are just one more step, including all the pollinators, not just monarchs. And Soil and Water would, I believe, like to partner with us, see what we can do in the future. So that would probably be part of this information that can come forward at another board meeting. It was very well done and a pretty good turnout. I had a PAC 4 meeting, not too much to report on that. I also had a Prairie Lakes Youth Program meeting, and I'll report a little bit more in detail about that. It's one of our better meetings, better in the sense we can report a lot of positive things taking place now. We were 87% full, and that's the closest we've been, and we're feeling we're turning things around, and we're heading in the right direction. We have other issues to work with all the time. We're working on our programs and also with the schools about the educational component of that, and our meeting. And we talked about a management software program for Prairie Lakes Youth Program, and we also talked about partnering with Woodland Center's substance abuse disorder treatment program using Woodland Center. So we're excited about that possibility, and we even looked at a new logo for the Prairie Youth Program. So it's going well. There's going to be a staff appreciation picnic coming up as well. And we also talked about ASME and union. Some of the employees are looking to, we do have one unit that's unionized, and another one's looking at that possibility. So we'll be talking about in the future too, inflation and salary negotiations. I believe that really essentially covers everything that I would like to share. Administrator Kleindl.
And I forgot to announce one thing. On June 23rd, we're going to have our county surplus auction right outside the building here from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Just remind you.
Do we want
Thank
to
you.
talk about
Commissioner Nissen.
the Dovry meeting, or is that something?
Would that be,
That was last night. And
Yep.
would that be an agenda item, or?
It'd be an administrative report or.
Yeah,
Yep.
I was there, and so was Larry, and so was Roger, and I thought maybe one of those would cover it. But we met with Dovry Township regarding the, if I can get, the Candioi County Comprehensive Plan and how we can better work together with the townships on the planning and zoning. I think it went quite well. I think I don't know if we resolved all the issues, but Larry and Roger and I, plus our folks from planning and zoning, were there, and some of their, I think most of their township supervisors were there as well. Mm-hmm. So, and then we did have a meeting after that regarding broadband, and that was a bit disappointing.
And we'll talk about that one at work session, I'm sure.
So, but just like everything else, just for the public to know, I am very committed to getting some work done on broadband. But as everybody else has mentioned, costs are going up in almost every area. And so that's going to be something we'll have to work on. So I wanted to get that out there because I think the public needs to.
And Commissioner Nissen, I also understand it was a heated meeting in the terms of they had no air conditioning, right?
No air conditioning, that's right. It was a heated meeting.
It was very
But
warm
only in
there.
our way,
And
yeah.
I'm sure you It was very interesting having to meet without air conditioning. We're getting so spoiled nowadays. We're pretty lucky.
Well,
that
we had water available and we had a couple of fans going, so we made it through it.
Okay. Well, hearing nothing else at this point, Commissioners, I'm going to adjourn this meeting and we'll reconvene downstairs for our work session.
Correct.
Okay. Candido County Board of Commissioners meeting is hereby adjourned.